Welcome back to the Body Composition Coach podcast. And today we are talking, well, about a mix of things really. Under recovery, fatigue, why you're probably always exhausted. And no, it's not your hormones. That's probably not your hormones. Hormones are involved, but we shouldn't just blame them. There's usually something else. And I'm going to talk to you about what that might be. But generally, we'll talk about under recovery and chronic dieting and all of this kind of culmination that comes together. And I see this in some clients that I work with, and it's a very, very difficult problem to solve. Well, it's not. The solution is simple. The application and coaching somebody through the solution is very, very difficult. And that's probably where I earn my money. So before I do that, please, if you're enjoying the podcast, leave us a review, 5-star review, leave a comment. Comments mean the world. It really does help us to get this podcast out to more people. If you're a regular listener, thousands of you listen to this, by the way, I can see it, but not many of you leave us a comment or a review. So please, it's 10 seconds out of your day. Send it to a friend, let them know. And then again, if you want to work with us, if you want to work with me one-to-one, you can do that. Go to Instagram, go to my bio, you'll see the link. You can apply to work with me there. And if your project is something that I'm passionate about and want to be involved in, I will get in touch. Or you can be part of our group program. And again, you'll find that details in the bio. So look, let's get on with why you're always exhausted. The area that we're going to touch on is like chronic dieting. Maybe you've been dieting for a very long time. You've been on low calories for a long time. You've been training loads for a long time, but things just don't seem to be moving. And look, what I will say is there's two scenarios here. One is that is true. One is that you think that that's the case, but it's not actually true, right? And I'm going to cover the first one. I'm going to cover when it's actually true, because often, and I've got to be straight with you, I get clients come to me who say, I've been eating 1,200 calories for the last 3 years and I just can't lose any weight. And then I get them to monitor their food and their training and whatever, and they actually eat 1,200 calories and their weight just drops like a stone. So look, there is a scenario where you are doing that stuff, you aren't getting any results, and that is a genuine thing. I've got some clients who have this problem at the minute, so hopefully they'll listen to this because it's going to be helpful. But there is also the other one where it's like, you believe that you're doing that stuff, but when you actually get accurate with your data and accurate with your tracking and all that sort of stuff, turns out you're eating way more than that, or maybe you're binging on a weekend, or I won't go into the details of it because we're not going to talk about that today. But if that is you as well, like this isn't so relevant to you, but please listen anyway, because you might find yourself in this situation. So what sort of happens is, I genuinely, again, with females, we find ourselves where we've been dieting for a long time, being 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 calories, doing tons of cardio, we're on that Stairmaster 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, or we're running or whatever it is, or on the bike, or we're then doing some strength training. But we really struggle with the strength training to see much outcome or results from it, because we're just so used to being tired and chronically underfed and not sleeping very well and that sort of thing. So the knock-on effect of these things when you're dieting hard and you're restricting your calories and you're still training is that like sleep then becomes worse, and actually hunger just gets worse as well. So we then get really stressed, or stress becomes quite high because we've been in this underfed state for a long time. We probably have a really important and stressful job as well, and we probably have a family at home, so stress goes up. So you can see what's starting happening here, right? Thyroid function starts to drop off, your cortisol and your stress hormone goes through the roof. All of these things start happening all at the same time. Underfed, overstressed, overtraining, under-recovered. Like all of this stuff happens, right? And then what happens is somebody is genuinely eating 12, 13, 1,400 calories and not losing weight, because it's possible. I've seen it so many times. It's genuinely possible. So what do you do in those situations when you're exhausted, you're overtraining, you're under-recovered, you're overstressed, and you're not seeing results? Well, coaching somebody out of it's hard, because the solution is to increase your calories and work on a few other things, and I'll go into those. But ultimately, the solution initially is to increase your calories. And initially, you are going to gain weight. If you have been so used to eating so few calories, the amount of calories you actually need to eat to lose weight will be ridiculously low. What I'm not saying in this podcast is when you are eating 1,200 calories and you're not losing weight, and you genuinely are, that a calorie deficit doesn't work for you. It does, but your deficit might have to be like 800 or 900 calories. I wouldn't recommend it. And if you're not willing to go to those depths, like I say, I wouldn't recommend you do. If you're not willing to go to the depths of 800, 900 calories, then you're probably not going to lose weight, right? So we have to try and fix this problem. I actually had a client with this recently, and it was really frustrating. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second, whilst keeping her anonymous. But ultimately, you are going to need to eat more calories. You are going to need to gain some weight for a period of time. Why? Because what we need to do is bring that kind of 800 to 900 calories you're going to have to eat to be in a deficit. We need to bring that up. And this is why I quite like dieting for periods of time. But again, I'll cover that in a second. So we need to bring you up to maintenance calories. You will see a spike in the scales because you've eaten more carbohydrates, you're storing more water. And yeah, you might gain a little bit of body fat. And that's because your maintenance calories have got so low, you're now eating in a surplus when you're eating like 1500 calories. That won't last forever though. Over time, your maintenance will come up, your body will kind of get used to that again, and you'll stop gaining weight and you'll be way more susceptible to losing weight again. Now, the reason that I say this is so difficult to go through with clients is because they've spent so much time lowering their calories, driving their calories down, dieting hard, and that's what they've learned. And they know that they need to diet if they want to lose weight, but you almost have to let go of this idea of losing weight now. You've got to let go of it and you've got to get back to your body functioning as it should be. Because when you get back to that point, what you're then able to do is then diet successfully. So like I said, I had a client come in who had been eating like 12, 13, 1400 calories for a very long time, training 5-6 days a week and doing all of that stuff. When she came in, I told her, look, we will try this. We will try and check that you are actually eating 1200 calories. We'll monitor that stuff. And, we only worked with her for a short period of time. But the reality is you then might need to come out of your dieting phase if nothing's moving, because I'm not going to put you in an 800 calorie diet. If nothing's moving, we need to reset your maintenance and bring you back up. The problem with this, and it happened in this particular scenario as well, is the patience required to see that through of bringing your maintenance up, gaining some weight, forgetting about fat loss, working on performance, working on your macronutrients, your micronutrients, the way you fuel your body, the way you train, working on all that stuff for months before you then go back into your dieting phase. But look, how I would phrase this is, what is the alternative? And I said this to this client, what is the alternative? You eat 800 calories and then suddenly you manage to lose a little bit of weight. What about when you go back to eating normally again and your maintenance is on the floor? What about that? And look, this client didn't want to have the patience with us. They didn't want to stay with us. They didn't want to work through that process. They wanted a quick fix to find a way to fix the solution. And there isn't one. Look, this is just me being straight and me being honest. And I've said I'll always do that in this job. You may need to spend some time refueling and bringing your thyroid function back up, your insulin sensitivity back up, kind of setting your hunger hormones and lowering your cortisol, and that might take some time. But you'll need to refeed, you need to feed yourself, you need to have sufficient calories, you need to have sufficient carbs, you need to have sufficient fats, your fiber. All of these things will need to happen. You'll need to bring down your cardio and you'll need to accept that you're going to gain weight for a period of time. But that's all part of the bigger picture. And again, as a coach, this is the difficult part, right? Because somebody might have to work with me for 6 months without losing any body fat at all. We have to go through this process. But then comes the fun bit, right? Let's say instead of being, having to eat 800 calories to lose any weight, let's say you weigh 60 kilograms, right? Just as an example. You might now weigh 65 kilos after we've been through this. You might have gained some weight, right? Oh, shock horror. You've gained a little bit of weight. What are we going to do? But long term, let's then say we go into a deficit and you can drop weight like that easily because your maintenance is higher. Eating 12, 13, 14, 15, 1600 calories becomes much easier. You can drop into it for a period of time and then you can lose some body fat. And when things start to down regulate again, we can bring you back out, come to maintenance. You stay at that. Maybe we go from 65 to 60. We eat at maintenance and keep you healthy and strong and performing well. And then we drop back into a deficit again and we get you down to 55 and then we bring you back up to maintenance. And this is why I like to use fat loss sprints and periods of time and refeed weeks and things like that. Because for these particular clients, and if you're listening to this and you realize you're one of these people who everything's down regulated and your hormones aren't functioning properly anymore and your thyroid's not functioning and you're not losing weight no matter how low calories you go on, look, this is the solution for those people. And this is what I use with those clients. And I created a video on this actually recently for my clients, just really explaining every element of this process and how it works and to give them the education that they need as well. But when everything down regulates, and I've spoke about this on some podcasts recently, as I'm talking, I'm using my hands, subconsciously, when you have been chronically dieting for a long time, you stop doing that. You stop doing these things. And this all costs you energy, or doing it costs me energy throughout the day, and not doing it doesn't cost me energy. So my calorie burn when I'm doing this and talking to you and moving my hands and all that sort of stuff while I'm filming these podcasts, I'm using energy. But subconsciously, when you have been chronically dieting and underfeeding yourself, you won't do this and you won't feed energy. It's not a conscious thing. So it's not something you can just switch it on and think, oh, well, I'll make sure I do more of that. Like, you won't, right? It's just like a subconscious thing. So where did we get to? Well, look, you've been under fueling. Your sleep then has kind of been affected because you've been chronically dieting. You've been overtraining and you've not been recovering from that either. Your basal metabolic rate or your resting metabolic rate has become so low that even on 1200 calories, you're not losing any weight. The solution: bring your calories up, bring your carbs up, bring your fats up, manage the process well, accept, and this is the psychological issue, is where the coaching becomes really, really important. It's probably the toughest thing I work through with women. Psychologically, you're going to gain some weight. You're going to be a little bit more unhappy with your current situation, but that's where holding your hand becomes really, really important. And you will, I really don't like the word reset, but you'll reset your metabolism. You don't reset it, but you bring your metabolism back up, you move more, you perform better, you train harder, and all of these things. So instead of having to eat 800 calories now to lose body fat, you might have to eat 1200 calories, or you might have to eat 1400 calories, or you might have to eat the same calories you were trying to eat to lose weight, but you might actually lose weight now rather than actually just spinning the wheels and not really getting anywhere. Go back to what I really started with in this podcast. The reason you're probably exhausted from dieting and training and not getting anywhere, and you're sick of going through the process, could well be this, right? It could well be this. And the solution isn't to just diet harder, restrict yourself harder, push yourself harder. It's giving your body the fuel and resources required to be in a position to lose fat and build muscle and train hard and move more and not doing loads of cardio and sleep harder and better. Like, you must provide your body with the tools and the resources to do that. So look, if you find yourself in this position, and this is always a sensitive subject when we're talking about overtraining and underfueling, because not everyone is undertraining and under recovering, and they think they are. But if you genuinely do feel like you're one of those people, I would encourage you to reach out. Drop me a message on Instagram. Just say, listen, Jono, I listened to your podcast and you've just summed me up. It's exactly where I am with things. I've been eating like low calories for a long period of time. I'd love to chat to you about it, and I'm not getting anywhere. And I can talk to you about the process that we use to help women out of this position. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a difficult one to coach. It's not something that I do enjoy it because it's amazing to see the progress that people make then long term. You know, we can show you kind of I suppose you can call it like wave loading that we use, or the fat loss sprints that we use, and how we pull people into a deficit and then we pull them out and then we build their metabolism up and we get them functioning well and properly, and then we drop them back into a deficit. And then long term, and look, you got to have your long-term head on here. You got to be thinking long term. I think my question in these situations is always, what is the alternative? Because if you're like, do you know what? I'm not willing to gain a little bit of weight. I'm not willing to trust this process. I'm not willing to eat more calories for a little while. Fine. But those who do, a year down the line, they'll have the lean, toned, strong physique that they wanted. Those who don't, a year down the line, you're still going to be trying to stick to the plan hard enough and eat in low enough calories to lose the weight that you've been trying to lose. And you're going to be no better off as soon as you can't eat those low calories, because you can't eat them forever. You're going to be no better off because you will then start to eat a little bit more and you'll just gain the weight back again. So what's the alternative? That's kind of my question in these situations. It's hard, but it's the truth. What's the alternative? If you don't do this, what is the alternative? So look, reach out to us, drop us a message. I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it, go into a bit more depth with it, talk about the ins and outs of it. Or if you're just ready to like, do you know what, Jono, let's just do it. Let's work. Let me work one-to-one with you. I want to work through this process. I'm sick of going around in circles. Just go to the link in my bio on Instagram. Hit the link, you'll be able to see the application to work with me there. I'll happily work with you one-to-one on this, or you can be part of our group program. We don't actually do the specifics of this process on there, but you can work with me one-to-one in that bio. So go and hit that. But as always, if you found this useful, if you've related to it, if you're like, you know what, you've hit the nail on the head with this, just drop me a comment on Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're watching or listening to this. Give us a 5-star review. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, I will see you on the next one.